The young waitress gently slid the plate of pancakes across the table toward the boy, her voice soft as she whispered, "Same as always, sweetheart. No charge." She never once asked his name, nor did she expect anything in return. But that morning, something changed. The entire neighborhood seemed to freeze as four sleek, black SUVs pulled up outside the diner. A man in a military uniform emerged, clutching a neatly folded letter in his hand.
Who were they?
And why did the entire room stand up when that woman walked out? Welcome to QH. Let's uncover what truly unfolded. Jenny Miller's 29 years old, worked as a waitress at Rosie's Diner, a cozy little spot squeezed between a hardware store and a laundromat in rural Kansas. Every day, her life followed the same predictable routine: rise before dawn, walk 3 blocks to work, tie her faded blue apron around her waist, and greet the regulars with a warm smile, one that always concealed the loneliness lurking behind it. Jenny lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment above the pharmacy. The only family photos she had were yellowed with age. Her father had passed away when she was just 15, and 2 years later, her mother had followed. The aunt who had raised her had moved to Arizona to deal with her arthritis, leaving Jenny with nothing more than the occasional holiday phone call or letter. It was on a Tuesday in early October that Jenny first noticed the boy. He couldn't have been older than 10, small for his age, with sharp eyes that seemed to absorb everything around him while giving away nothing in return. He always sat in the farthest booth, away from the door, with a backpack much too large for his small frame resting beside him, and a book perpetually open on the table. The first time he came in, he only ordered a glass of water. Jenny brought it over with a smile and a paper straw. He thanked her with a barely perceptible nod. The next day, it was the same, just water. And again the day after that. By the second week, Jenny had figured out his pattern. Every morning, without fail, he arrived at precisely 7:15 a.m., a full 45 minutes before school started at the elementary school 3 blocks away. He would sit there, reading his book, sipping his water slowly, while the other customers around him enjoyed pancakes, bacon, eggs, and toast. At 7:55 a.m., he would close his book, give her a quiet thank you, and leave, his stomach still empty. On the 15th day, Jenny accidentally brought him a plate of pancakes. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, placing the plate down as if confused. "The kitchen made an extra batch. I'll just leave it here, so it doesn't go to waste." The boy looked up, suspicion and hunger warring in his eyes. "It's okay," Jenny reassured him. "Sometimes the cook gets the orders mixed up. Better to eat it than throw it away, right?" She left quickly before he could protest, but she watched him from behind the counter. He picked up the fork hesitantly, as if unsure, then took his first bite. When Jenny returned 10 minutes later, the plate was empty, and the boy's eyes were glued to his book, deliberately avoiding any further interaction. "Thank you," he whispered quietly as she cleared the plate away. And so, an unspoken ritual began. Every morning, Jenny would bring him the mistaken order, or the extra batch of food the cook had made: pancakes one day, scrambled eggs and toast the next, oatmeal with brown sugar as the colder mornings approached. The boy never asked for anything, never spoke more than a quiet thank you, but he ate every bite. Sometimes so quickly, it seemed as though he was afraid the food might vanish. "Who's that kid you keep serving?" Harold, a retired postal worker who always sat at the same stool every morning, asked one day. "Never seen his parents around." "I don't know," Jenny admitted, "but he's hungry." After the third week, Kathy, who worked the grill, cornered Jenny in the back. "You're feeding a stray," she said, not unkindly, but with the practical wisdom of someone who had seen kindness turn into frustration. "You give handouts, they never learn gratitude. He'll just disappear one day." "They all do." Jenny didn't argue. She simply shrugged and said, "It's fine. I used to be that hungry, too." It was the most personal thing she'd shared with her coworkers in the 3 years she'd worked at Rosie's. The boy never volunteered his name, and Jenny never asked. Something in his manner, his careful movements, the way he always positioned himself to see both the door and the window, told her that asking too many questions would only push him away. Instead, She focused on making sure his water glass was always full, his pancakes were served warm, and the diner felt like a safe haven for him to breathe a little easier for 40 minutes each morning. Sometimes, when the diner was quiet and the boy was lost in his book, Jenny allowed herself to wonder. Did he live nearby? Did he have family? Why was he always alone? And why did hunger seem like such a constant companion for him? But she quickly pushed those thoughts aside. In her experience, kindness given with strings attached wasn't truly kindness at all. So, she kept up their silent arrangement, noticing that the boy's shoulders seemed to relax a little more each day, his eyes meeting hers for a fraction longer every time she approached his table. That tiny shift, eye contact stretching from an instant to maybe two, was enough to convince Jenny that, no matter how small, what she was doing mattered. By the 6th week, others had started to notice Jenny's daily routine with the boy. Most said nothing, but a few couldn't help but comment, their words laced with the particular sting of those who had long forgotten what it meant to need help. Playing charity worker on company time? A businessman asked one morning, his tone dripping with disdain. Kids these days expect handouts everywhere. Times sure have changed, remarked another regular, shaking his head. Back in my day, no one gave away free food just because someone looked sad. Jenny heard these comments, but she let them roll off her like rain sliding down a window. She knew better than to engage with those who criticized kindness. It only seemed to harden their hearts further. But Mark, the diner's manager, wasn't so easily ignored. One morning, he called Jenny into the small office behind the kitchen. His face was serious beneath his perpetually sweaty brow. "I've been watching you with that kid," he said, tapping his fingers on the laminate desk. "Can't have employees giving away free meals. It's bad for business, and it sets a dangerous precedent." Jenny twisted her apron in her hands, nodding in understanding. "I'll cover the costs myself," she offered quietly. Mark raised an eyebrow. "From your tips? Those barely cover your rent." "It's my choice," Jenny replied, the firmness in her voice causing Mark to study her more carefully. "Just one meal a day. I can manage." After a long pause, Mark sighed.
"Fine.
"But if it affects your work or if that kid causes any trouble, it stops immediately." "Understood." Jenny nodded, a wave of relief washing over her. She had expected to be reprimanded or even fired, but this compromise felt like a small victory. Every morning, she set aside part of her tips, money that could have gone toward a new winter coat or the dentist appointment she'd been putting off, and paid for the boy's breakfast. Then, on a particularly cold Thursday in November, the boy didn't show up. Jenny found herself checking the door every few minutes, an uneasy feeling creeping into her stomach. She went ahead and prepared his usual plate of pancakes, setting it at his empty booth, just in case. "Waste of food," Kathy muttered as she passed by, shaking her head. By closing time, the plate of pancakes sat untouched, a silent reminder of his absence. Jenny wrapped them up and took them home, unable to throw them away. The boy didn't appear the next day, or the day after. A week passed with no sign of him, and Jenny began to wonder if Kathy had been right all along. Had he simply moved on, as strays often do? The thought left her with an empty ache she couldn't explain. She knew nothing about him, his name, his story, yet his absence felt deeply significant. A small light had gone out in her world, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something important was missing.